Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a necessary, I think, and highly focused shortcut straight into the disturbing world of the psychopath.
Yeah, it's based on the foundational and frankly quite chilling research of Dr. Robert D. Hare.
Exactly. And you've shared the sources outlining this complex, often camouflage personality disorder. So our mission today, for you listening, is really to cut through the noise.
Yeah, cut through the noise and deliver a precise understanding of who these individuals are and maybe more importantly, how they operate.
Right.
So the primary goal for you today is, look, leave behind the media stereotype, the Hollywood psycho-serial killer.
That sensational image.
That image, yeah.
Yeah.
And instead grasp the full spectrum of psychopathy.
Yeah.
Because we are talking about predators who are often highly functional, operating outside prison walls.
Walking among us.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
often undetected, yet causing, massive social and economic damage.
And that leads us, I think, immediately to the most crucial distinction. It's one the sources are incredibly clear about. When we discuss a psychopath, we are explicitly not talking about someone who is psychotic or insane or, out of touch with reality.
That is the absolute dividing line. It's what the research often calls mad versus bad. Psychopathy is fundamentally a personality disorder. It's characterized by a specific interlocking cluster of traits. And crucially, psychopaths are rational. They are aware.
They know that they're doing.
They know what they're doing. They understand the morality, the consequences for themselves, for others, their destructive behavior. It's not from a broken mind. It's the result of choice, freely and coldly exercised.
Which, as you read through the material, it just makes the profile far more unsettling, doesn't it? If they know the rules, if they understand the pain they inflict,
And choose to do it
and
anyway.
you choose to disregard it, what is it then that's missing internally?
Well, the foundational characteristic is the stunning absence of conscience, empathy, the inability to form warm emotional attachments. They simply operate without those internal restraints.
The things that stop most of us.
Exactly. Guilt, social responsibility, those things just aren't there in the same way.
Let's zoom out for a moment then. Look at the sheer scope of this deficit in society. How prevalent is this type of personality, actually?
Statistically, it's surprising to many. The prevalence of psychopathy in the general population is roughly the same as schizophrenia.
Wow, okay, that's
A
significant.
massive number of people. Now, while schizophrenia obviously causes intense personal distress and suffering, the sources argue that the scope of damage, personal, social, economic damage caused by psychopaths is far wider.
Especially the high-functioning ones you mentioned.
Especially those. They cast a really wide, destructive net.
And that contrast you brought up, it leads us right back to the criminal versus the non-criminal. We all know the extreme cases, right? The Gacy's, the Bundys.
The headline grabbers.
Yeah. But the reality, according to Hare's work, is much more subtle.
Exactly. The vast majority, and this is key, the vast majority of psychopaths manage to ply their trade, so to speak, without resorting to murder or obvious violent crime.
So they stay out of prison.
They stay out of prison. They use their considerable charm, their manipulation skills. We're talking white-collar criminals, con artists, swindlers.
Unscrupulous business people.
Absolutely. The point being, you are statistically much, much more likely to lose your life savings to some oily-tongued manipulator than your life to a cold-eyed killer.
Okay. So if the core deficit is that missing conscience, how do they mask that emptiness? How do they operate so effectively among people who do have consciences? Let's maybe start with the traits that help them blend in.
Right. Well, it often starts with that superficial charm, glibness. These individuals are often incredibly smooth talkers.
Masters of the first impression.
Totally. And masters of jargon. They can make themselves seem familiar with everything from sociology and art history to, complex legal frameworks. It's all a performance designed to disarm you.
There's that great little anecdote in the sources, the interviewer who gets immediately complimented on her beautiful eyes by an inmate.
Yes. Perfect example.
And it works.
Yeah.
It throws her off her professional focus.
Instantly. They are experts in distraction and flattery. Think of Dick the con artist. He's mentioned in the material regarding In Cold Blood.
Right, the check cashing incident.
Exactly. He convinced a clothing clerk to cash a check for $80 more than the bill. Just spun this complex, plausible story. A wedding, a honeymoon, needing quick cash.
So the salesman wasn't focused on the check itself.
Not at all. He was caught up in the emotional urgency, the flattering attention. This is what Hare termed duping delight. They get a real thrill from fooling others.
And beneath that, well, that dazzling exterior, there's this incredibly inflated sense of self-worth.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just confidence, it's genuine grandiosity. They view themselves as superior beings, justified in living entirely by their own rules.
Above everyone else.
Completely. One subject, when rating himself on personality tests, proudly stated he was an all-round 10. He even added, "I would have said 12, but that would be bragging." Another subject just flatly stated, "I follow my own laws." That utter certainty of superiority, it's a huge red flag, often appears early on.
Okay, so if they see themselves as so superior, so entitled,
Yeah.
it kind of follows that they wouldn't feel any need to apologize or feel bad when their actions hurt people.
Exactly. Which takes us to that profound lack of remorse or guilt.
Yeah.
They exhibit just a stunning lack of concern for the devastating effects of their actions. It's not just that they don't feel guilt. They're often completely forthright about it.
Like they don't even see the point in pretending.
Sometimes, yes. We have that chilling quote from the individual who stabbed a robbery victim. When asked about it, he replied, "Get real. What did he want to go and bother me for?"
Blaming the victim.
Instantly. And then he adds, "Anyway, the guy never suffered. Knife wounds to an artery are the easiest way to go." Just cold justification.
That is deeply disturbing. The immediate pivot. His violent action becomes the victim's fault for, quote, bothering him.
It's a total failure to accept personal responsibility. And it's always, always coupled with rationalization. You see burglars claiming their victims were insured up the kazoo.
Right, suggesting it wasn't really harm.
Or even that the crime was actually a favor, allowing the victim to collect insurance money. They deny consequences by just redefining reality. They're always the victim of the system, never the perpetrator of harm.
So if they intellectualize their actions like this, I mean, how do they even experience emotion at all? The sources describe their emotional life as, like, paint by numbers, shallow.
That's a really good description. It's because they can't truly walk in the shoes of others, emotionally speaking.
They can understand it intellectually, maybe.
Yes, they might intellectually grasp the concept of fear or grief or love, but they don't feel it with any depth or resonance. It's hollow.
Okay, if they're so rational, as you said earlier, how do they process really fundamental survival-based emotions? Like fear, doesn't that register?
Well, it seems they process them as purely cognitive facts, data points almost, rather than physical or visceral experiences.
This is where the science comes in.
This is where the science is so illuminating, yes. Laboratory experiments using physiological measures, things like skin conductance, heart rate, have shown that psychopaths lack the normal responses associated with fear.
That's the reaction to emotionally charged language, right?
Precisely. If you show a neurotypical person an emotional word like death, their body reacts. Physiologically, you see a response. It shows internal bite.
Okay.
But for a psychopath, according to these studies, they respond to death pretty much the same way they respond to a neutral word like paper or table.
Wow, no difference.
Little to no difference. Their inner speech, their processing just lacks the emotional resonance that acts as a brake on behavior for most people.
A break.
There was even a high psychopathy rapist who commented he found it hard to empathize with his victim's terror. He explained that he himself had been scared before, and it wasn't unpleasant. For him, maybe it was just arousal, stimulation, not the paralyzing dread others feel.
So they lack that core emotional mechanism, the one that tells a rational person, stop, you're causing unacceptable pain, or hang on, that action is way too risky.
Correct. That internal governor is missing. And that lack of internal control leads directly, predictably, to their external behavior, their lifestyle.
Okay, so moving from that cold inner life to their outward actions, how does this profile translate into their day-to-day lifestyle? What does that look like?
Well, it typically creates a chronically unstable, erratic lifestyle. It's marked by extreme impulsivity and this relentless need for excitement.
Living for the moment.
Entirely for the immediate moment. Seeking instant gratification, instant pleasure, often through thrill-seeking or, just breaking rules because they can. One subject captured it perfectly, saying simply, "I did it because I felt like it."
No deeper reason needed.
Not at all. They're described in the source material. It's a useful analogy as being like a 2-year-old who cannot postpone pleasure.
Right, that inability to delay gratification.
And that analogy is highly effective, I think. They just don't have the capacity for it. And this is compounded by poor behavioral controls,
Reading.
meaning they are highly reactive. especially to perceived slights or frustration. It can lead to sudden outbursts, temper tantrums.
But are these tantrums like hot-headed rage?
That's the crucial difference.
Yeah.
Often, even these outbursts are described as cold. They feel calculated. One inmate explicitly stated, "I keep myself in control, like I decide how much I want to hurt the guy."
So the anger is a tool, not a loss of control.
Exactly. It's instrumental anger, used to intimidate or manipulate. And this chronic irresponsibility, it just bleeds into every single area of their life, not just their legal record, if they have one.
Okay, so beyond crime.
Absolutely. Their unreliability is pervasive. Jobs, family commitments, finances, it's all chaotic. We see these painful examples of indifference in the research.
Like the mother.
Yes. The psychopathic mother who barely protested when her 5-year-old daughter was taken into care by social services, but then protested vehemently when her car was impounded.
The priorities are just skewed.
Completely. The car represented an immediate personal asset, something she used. The child was a long-term responsibility she was, frankly, happy to shed.
And there was that other case, the parents who risked everything.
Yes, the source mentions parents who put up their house as collateral for their psychopathic daughter's bail. What does she do? Immediately skips town.
Leaving them to face foreclosure.
Exactly. That indifference to the severe welfare consequences for others, even their own family, their own kin, it's a hallmark of this disorder. It's chillingly consistent.
This brings us back then to the non-criminal predator, the white-collar psychopath. They aren't using a fist or a knife.
No, they're using the tools of commerce.
Right.
Contracts, charm, manipulation.
To inflict devastation.
And this is perhaps the most socially relevant type for you, the listener, to really understand. Consider the case mentioned. John Grambling Jr.
A fraudster.
defrauded banks of millions with absolutely no collateral. How? He used his very nice social graces, his polished exterior. He established immediate, unquestioned trust.
I remember the prosecutor's description of Grambling. It was really striking, comparing his methods to, well, outright violence.
It was. The prosecutor noted that Grambling's crimes were calculated greed, driven by a lust for power. And although his tools were genteel, signing checks, making phone calls.
Seemingly harmless actions.
Seemingly. But his instincts were as savage as the street brute. He created financial wreckage, devastated families, institutions, all without ever raising his voice.
And in a corporate environment, this is where that manipulation gets camouflaged, isn't it? Mistaken for ambition, maybe?
That is precisely where it thrives. Take the example given of Dave in the workplace.
Okay.
He was chronically rude, selfish, frequently late, standard bad employee stuff maybe, but he managed to charm and manipulate upper management.
So they didn't see the bad behavior.
They saw it, but they reframed it. They saw him through this filter of ambition. They excused his aggressive backbiting, his sabotaging of colleagues. They called it having a creative bent or drive.
So he was essentially able to charm vertically, upwards,
Exactly.
but brutally manipulate horizontally his peers.
Precisely. Those closest to him, his peers, his subordinates, they recognized him immediately. Liar, manipulator. But they often lacked the power or the channels to expose him effectively. Dave was a master of managing upward perception while brutalizing downward.
Leveraging the fact that management sometimes overlooks destructive behavior if it seems tied to, quote, high performance or killer instinct.
That's the dangerous dynamic right there.
So, if someone listening finds themselves involved with someone like this, a true psychopath, maybe a relative, a partner, a coworker, what does the research say about stopping them or changing them?
Yeah, that's the really tough question. And the prognosis, according to Hare and others, is extremely sobering, meaning traditional psychotherapy is not only largely ineffective, it's often counterproductive.
Psychopaths are inherently resistant to change. Why? Because they don't believe they have problems. They are entirely self-satisfied with who they are.
So they don't engage with therapy genuinely.
They engage, but not to heal or change. They use therapy to gain new tools.
New tools.
For manipulation. The sources are very clear on this. They use therapy to gain new excuses and rationalizations for their behavior. And, critically, they learned new and better ways of manipulating other people.
So it's like a finishing school for them.
It can be, yes. They view therapeutic programs, group sessions, as a way to learn how to put the squeeze on people more effectively. Since their personalities are, as the research bluntly states, pretty much carved in stone.
Wow.
Expecting dramatic, sustained change is usually fruitless. It rarely happens.
That makes knowledge, understanding, this pattern, the best defense, maybe the only real defense.
It really is.
So what are the key survival guide rules then? What should you look out for?
Okay, rule number 1, and this is crucial. Don't be fooled by props.
Meaning the dazzling charm, the fast talk, the good looks, the captivating mannerisms, all the surface stuff. You have to consciously avoid being distracted by it.
Focus on the substance.
Focus intensely on the actual consistent content of their character, especially their past behavior. Do their words ever align with reality over time?
Yeah.
Look at the track record.
Get past that glibness that acts like a shield.
Exactly. Okay, rule number 2. Be wary of the empty gaze.
The eyes.
Yeah. Now, this isn't a formal clinical diagnostic point, obviously, but anecdotal evidence, particularly from true crime literature and victim accounts, consistently describes their eye contact as intense, yet somehow empty, or reptilian.
Unsettling.
Profoundly unsettling for many people. It's thought to reflect that emotionless inner state we talked about. So if you feel deeply uneasy just meeting someone's gaze consistently, that's a warning sign. Heed that gut feeling.
Okay. And rule number 3.
Rule number 3 is know your own buttons.
Your vulnerabilities.
Yes. Psychopaths are adept, incredibly skilled at spotting and exploiting vulnerabilities in others. If you are, say, particularly susceptible to flattery,
A sucker for a compliment.
they see that as, quote, an engraved invitation. They also often target people with a strong nurturant, need people who feel compelled to help or rescue or mother others. They convince these people that they can be the one to fix them.
Playing on that desire to help.
Exactly. So if you recognize that you're involved with someone who fits this profile, the advice is stark but clear. Cutting your losses is essential for your emotional, sometimes even physical survival.
And that's not easy to do alone.
Almost never. That transition, extracting yourself, almost always requires professional help. Guidance to manage the exit strategy safely and effectively.
This entire deep dive, it's really been focused on helping you understand that crucial difference between mad and bad. Recognizing that rational yet hollow core beneath the charm.
And appreciating the chilling predictability of their destructive behavior patterns. And, that leads to a necessary final thought about the societal implications.
Go on.
If we, as a culture, increasingly tolerate or even sometimes reward traits like impulsivity, profound irresponsibility, a lack of remorse, which, let's be honest, we sometimes see in various sectors today.
We risk creating an environment where they thrive.
We risk evolving into what the sources call a camouflage society, a society where these psychopathic traits are normalized, maybe even reinforced, allowing these individuals to blend in, or worse, rise to power, completely undetected.
The research mentioned one particularly poignant irony towards the end.
Ah, yes, the con artist case.
When a con artist who had basically destroyed a local community was finally exposed, many of the victims actually rushed to support him.
It's incredible, isn't it? They seemed more worried about the humiliation, about being publicly labeled a sucker,
Than they were about the truth of his crimes, the damage he'd done.
which, in a world where being victimized by a dazzling predator is deeply humiliating, it raises a really important final question for you to consider. How often does society, maybe even unconsciously, choose to protect the charmer? Or forgive the deception, simply to avoid the painful public truth of having been thoroughly and completely conned?
Until next time, keep exploring and keep those minds open.